Hi, everyone. Sorry, for some reason, the Zoom wanted me to download the new version and it took forever. So give people a few more moments just to pop on. And we'll be good to go. Okay. Let's pull up some videos. Okay. Okay. All right. So, hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Woody. I am the Collegiate Outreach Coordinator for the Center for Prevention and Outreach. I'm a licensed social worker and I am a sea wolf. So, I began my journey here as a sea wolf in 2014. I got my bachelor's in sociology, and then I went on to get my master's in social work from the School of Social Welfare right here on I guess that's considered East Campus, HSC. I then spent a majority of my time as a social worker working and running the only runaway and homeless youth and young adult shelter overseen by an organization called Hope for Youth. I learned a lot. Especially on stress management, especially on how to cope with stress, how to deal with stress, what stress is. So I'm excited to share a little bit about that, and then just a few things about CPO. So I am going to share my screen because I can't imagine that y'all want to look at my face the entire time that we're chatting. So I am going to share. Hold on one second. I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to share screen two. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to be talking about mindfulness and stress management. So just really quick getting to know the Center for Prevention Outreach. So we really focus on early intervention and education and prevention. And we want to make sure that students understand, um, you know, really how to maintain their health and wellness. But also, we have 4 different pillars that we talk about, and areas that we know that from the research, that students, when they have the most up-to-date information and education about these areas, they really are able to change their behavior, and that education can impact them in a meaningful way where they can make better informed decisions on how to live a healthy and happy life. So that's really why we focus on the 4 topics we focus on. So one of those topics we focus on is alcohol and other drugs, and we want to make sure that students understand the spectrum of substance use. We talk about harm reduction. We talk about different techniques that can support those in recovery. We also talk about how to, engage in our community in a healthy way, whether that is, not using any alcohol or other drugs, and like how to be able to have those conversations with your peers, with your colleagues, to not also know that you're not the only one who doesn't want to engage in substance use or abuse. But really being able to bring that knowledge to students and exercise those rights are really important. The area that I oversee is the mental health and suicide prevention. So really, my 3 goals for students to know is that they're not alone. You are not alone. That together we thrive, and that reaching out is a sign of strength. So really, my goal is to focus on making sure that students are involved, to support their mental health, to know that, being just a part of a community is actually a protective factor against suicide. but really just wanting students to grab a hold of a narrative around mental health and suicide, and to be able to change what that narrative is. And I think that we have a phenomenally supportive administration here at Stony Brook when it comes to mental health and suicide prevention. So, our outreach efforts are heightened, and I think students hopefully know those three things. But we want to make sure that students understand that their mental health is just as important as their physical health. And really, how do you take care of your physical health? You eat well, you exercise, you sleep well. It's the same things. They're very highly intertwined. So we also talk about physical health, right? We want to make sure that students understand and engage in like the relevant topics, right? Encouraging students to advocate for their physical health as well as their mental health. And knowing that like when we make decisions that are healthy, when we engage in education now, right? Especially the stuff that we talk about, it's all it's all relevant to your future as well. So everything that we talk about in CPO is really, works right now in the here and now, but also can, help help you in regards to your own taking hold of those narratives. And then last but definitely not least is our violence intervention and prevention area. And we really focus on the impacts of different forms of sexual violence, interpersonal violence, relationships, and education, making sure that students also understand all of the on-campus and off-campus resources for all four of our areas is something else that we're, trying to amplify as well. So we also have well over 35 different workshops to choose from. We have our 4 different areas. You can use this link that's right there. It's tinyurl.com/CPO workshop. And you can engage in just more education on getting to know different areas of mental health, violence prevention, your physical health, and alcohol and other drugs. We talk about we do like more deep dives on different topics that are relevant to students. We talk about cannabis, we talk about party drugs, we talk about period poverty, we talk about STI prevention, we talk about fighting fair, we talk about how to have a healthy relationship. We also have a skill-based workshop on resilience and coping. How do you build coping skills that make you more resilient? We talk about neurodiversity. We talk about stress, anxiety, depression. There's all these different things that we talk about. I would encourage you, if you want to learn more about our 4 areas, please engage in any of our topic specific workshops, and you can also get a certificate. Last but definitely not least, one of the other things that we do and are pretty well known for on campus is our bystander intervention trainings. So we want to make sure that students see wolves are active upstanders, and we want to combat that bystander effect in all of our areas. So our Red Watch Band really engages students on toxic overdose prevention. What does it look like when someone is struggling or is potentially in an overdose, and how do we get them the help they need? We talk about being able to administer. We teach you how to administer, and we give you Narcan. You get Narcan trained as well. And then some of those also come with CPR. So we're doing a lot of like ways that you can, interact and stand up in a situation. QPR is question, persuade, and refer, and that's on suicide prevention and intervention. It really teaches students to notice the signs that someone's struggling, maybe having thoughts of ending their life by suicide, and then how do you offer them hope and refer them to the appropriate resource. That is an internationally known program that's used all over the world, and we're happy to be able to provide that for students, staff, and faculty here. And our green dot is the interpersonal violence prevention. And we really are equipping students with the knowledge to be able to assess a situation from maybe like the outside, know what it looks like, the signs of something violent or potentially become violent, and then how do you intervene to be able to dodge what's happening and help the students maybe in that situation be able to get them to resources, right? So what's great about all of these trainings is that you don't even need to just use them on campus. You can use them outside of campus as well. If you complete all 3 of our bystander trainings this semester before you graduate, you are considered an upstander. We give you an award, you get a certificate, you're invited to our gala. And you also get a cord at graduation. So we do love when students participate because we know that time is the most highest commodity for students, and we appreciate making our community safer. So I'm going to jump right in to stress. What is stress? What does it look like? How do we combat it? What are some signs that that we can really look at and distinguish when it comes to stress, right? So stress is defined kind of very simply as really a physical or mental response to something that is happening out of our body, right? So maybe having a lot to do, getting sick, arguing with a friend. Stress usually goes away once the situation is resolved, but stress can be a positive or a negative, right? How many of us can say that, like, oh, sometimes when I'm stressed, when I have a deadline that I need to meet, right, that stress actually affects me and motivates me in a positive way to get it done. So yeah, absolutely. Sometimes healthy stress can inspire us to meet a deadline, but also stress can help us and could cause us to lose sleep, right? So that's also really important to remember. Okay. So we're going to watch a quick video on how chronic stress can affect our brain. So if let me just make sure, I want to see if I click that. It will. Awesome. So we're going to watch a quick video on how stress can affect our brain.
Is here. Now in all.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all, though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news, though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
Okay, great. So I love that video because it really talks about, how does chronic stress affect our brain, right? So some really important takeaways that that I want to make sure that we talk about and we hit on, right? Stress isn't always a bad thing, right? I talked about the kind of like preface that before I played the video, right? It can be handy. Bursts of energy is focus, right? When we're playing a competitive sport, have to speak in public, like I mentioned, maybe meeting a deadline, right? So sometimes stress can be really helpful. What is really important to remember is that chronic stress can affect our brain size, the structure, how it functions. You know, uh, Chronic stress or high levels of stress can really change the way that our body functions. And that's really important to know because if you are, you know, in a field of high stress, right? So if you are a STEM major, I always say that because STEM students are just, I feel like they're just a different fit, a different breed of human. And I mean that in the most compassionate way because I don't know how STEM students engage in the level of just education here on campus for STEM students, I think is at a different level. And being able to be under all of that stress all of the time can be really detrimental to your health. So making sure you're finding those spaces and places to exercise. Meditation can decrease your stress, improve your memory, but also engaging in self-care, right? That's really important to remember. Now, if you came and did another session with me a couple of weeks ago, I talked about your baseline, right? And what is our baseline? What does that mean when I say baseline? Our baseline is really how do you know yourself to be on a pretty okay day, a pretty average day? What does that look like? How do you respond? What are your changes in mood? How do you act? All of those things, right? So once we know our baseline, we're able to identify our red flags, right? So getting to know our red flags is really important because once we know what our red flags are, right, that's how we know that um, uh, that we need help when we need that we need to reach out, right? So changes in our personality or our mood and behavior, right? Irritability, angry outbursts, right? Are we feeling agitated? Are we feeling withdrawn? Are we taking care of ourselves, right? Are you feeling hopeless, right? These are all different signs that you or someone that you know should reach out for help, right? What's really important to remember is that those are some ways that some questions you can ask yourself, right? Everyone responds differently to stress, but really the first step is to know how you're impacted. Knowing your red flags is exactly how you're going to be able to know how you're impacted, right? I always say, don't let your red flags get in the way. And if they are affecting you in your everyday life, that is when you absolutely know that it is time to reach out and get some help. Right? So how do we manage stress? Right? Sometimes I think that we're often talking about these things, but then how do we manage it? Right? What do we do? And I think that what's really important is self-care. Self-care has a preventive purpose. Okay. The World Health Organization, right, asserts that self-care involves personal factors like empowerment, self-resilience, autonomy, self-advocacy, personal responsibility. But self-care can also include factors from like a communal standpoint, right? Community involvement, participation in like your neighborhood, cultural empowerment. Those are ways that really you can engage in self-care. Okay. And it's really being able to maintain your health and coping with illness or anything without support of a healthcare provider. That's really what self-care is, right? Ideally, we all engage in regular self-care in which we do things that help us or make us feel taken care of, right? Mentally, physically, emotionally. But a lot of the time that doesn't happen. Okay. And we may need to stop sometimes and take the time to remind ourselves that we're important too, right? Some of our feelings become too much and we need to distract ourselves until we are better, we're in a better place to cope. Right. So I think of things often like when I'm really stressed and I'm really feeling like I don't really know if I'm going to get through this. Sometimes I can remove myself from that situation if I am lucky and engage in something that brings me joy. Engage in something that makes me feel like I have purpose, right? That can be a way to take care of myself, but also be able to distract myself, until I'm better equipped to cope. Okay, so how do we do that, right? So that's what self-care is. Okay. And the other thing that I want to make sure that we're talking about, right? This is adapted from the Duke Integrative Medicine. It's Duke Integrative Medicine Wheel of Health, right? So understanding that different things, right, influence our health. Our health can help us make positive changes, right? So yearly checkups, right, with our doctors are very important in preventing illness. Our wellness is primarily dependent on our day-to-day actions, right? Movement, nutrition, relationships, community, our mental well-being, how much sleep we're getting, our purpose, right? So at the heart of it is all mindfulness, honestly. Being mindful, being self-aware, right? Knowing our red flags allows us to identify what our self-care needs are in the moment. If we are able to stop and be mindful, stop and think about in this moment, what does my body need, right? Like when you have a headache, when you're feeling tired or run down, okay, what does my body need right now, right? And if we can stop and be mindful, we were able to really meet our minds and our bodies exactly where they are and be able to address some of those needs right then and there. So another way of looking at it, right, when we're talking about self-care, right, when we're building our self-care routine, it can be useful to think about our different dimensions of wellness, right? People often think about wellness in terms of maybe physical health, maybe their mental health, but there are way more factors and facets of our life that actually make up our well-being. So these different 8 categories really encourage us to take care of ourselves, really by telling us what our needs are in daily life, right? For example, one way to meet your social needs is maybe to stay in touch with your support system, right? Taking breaks from social media, right? If it's making you feel isolated, that could be a way to maybe grab coffee with a friend, right? That's to meet our social needs, right? Maybe to meet your environmental needs, maybe means like taking a walk in nature. If you've never checked out the Ashley Schiff Preserve here right on campus, it's a beautiful walk. Maybe, recycling, using sustainable products. Maybe that's a way to take care of our environmental needs, right? Oftentimes, if one area of wellness is lacking in our lives, it's going to affect the other, right? Because all of these, it's just it's intersectionality, right? So it's important to talk about, like different, occupational, right? Maybe tapping into making an appointment at the career center is a way that you can do that. Maybe engaging in a workshop, right? Maintaining your intellectual area of wellness, that type of thing, right? So there's all different areas of wellness that we can really engage in that can help, really take care of ourselves and maintain that healthy, physical health and mental health. Okay. So I am going to talk about 5 different self-care habits that you can incorporate into your daily life into a routine, really, that you can really engage in. They're 5 simple things. And remember to give yourself some grace, because honestly, change takes time and it is not easy to make change. So giving yourself grace is going to be really important, is the key to all of the things that we talk about, right? So 1, take care of your body, right? It may sound simple, when I say it like that, but I mean, how many of you as college students, right? How many of you are sacrificing sleep, right? To keep up with all of the other responsibilities, right? In the long run, less sleep or sleep deprivation can significantly impact our health, right? Now, I'm not telling you this here, like this isn't here to scare you, right? We just want to remind you, I want to remind you that in the midst of a hustle, right? Our culture is really just hustling on to the next thing, on to next. What's the next? What's this? How can I grow? How can I move forward? How can I be better? How can I make more money? How can I do better in school, right? We're told that we're consistently needing to be working, right? And sleep is for the weak. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah, like that's a crappy way to live, right? It can be really, really beneficial to change the narrative and prioritize rest just a little bit more, right? If we do realize, right, that we have a lot on our plate, right, recognize where our limits are, so we can create like a work rest ratio that seems more balanced or more attainable, right? So making sure that you're getting at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep is really ideal. 8 would be really beneficial, but some of us can't sacrifice that much, right? But how do you do that, right? So I'm telling you that you need a better sleep routine or take care of your sleep hygiene, right? How do you do that? Okay, so here are some tips for getting better sleep, right? So the most impactful thing that you can do to get more sleep is to give yourself some impactful sleep hygiene practices, right? A bedtime routine, right? Put your phone away, put on your pajamas, wash your face, put on moisturizer. There's a bunch of different sleep meditation apps that are free. Drinking a warm cup of water, doing the same thing, setting up a routine, and doing it the same way every night allows our bodies to then be ready for that routine, right? So in children, most people say that like if you have children, children benefit from a routine. It's because they know what's coming next. So if we can engage ourselves in a sleep hygiene routine, our body will then know that, oh, when I wash my face, when I put on moisturizer, when I drink the warm tea or the warm water, our bodies then tend to know what comes next. So then our body is able to be better ready for sleep, which is really important, right? Caffeine increases energy, right? So try to only have maybe 1 cup in the morning, 1 in the early afternoon, right? The effects of caffeine can last for hours. So I would encourage you to reduce your caffeine in the latter part of the day, okay? Exercising can be a great stress reliever. It can also help you feel more tired by the end of the day. So I know a lot of people like to get up super early. I'm not a morning person. If you find that you like to work out at night or you want to exercise at night, it's a great way to help you feel a little bit more tired right before the end of the day, right? Also, sleeping at the same time every day makes our bodies develop a certain circadian rhythm over time, right? So what will happen is that you will naturally feel sleepy at the same time every day. It is known, the science, the research tells us that, okay? Healthy sleep environment, right? A dark, cool room, right? So everything that I've ever read about sleep talks about like blackout shades, or that our body temperatures need to reach a certain degree in order to have a restful, successful sleep, a deep sleep. So you want to be in a cool, dark room, right? Don't do work on your bed, right? I would encourage you to move somewhere else outside of your bed. You want your body to associate bed with sleeping, and we want our bodies to associate, don't want to misassociate that, right? So if we're doing work or studying in our bed, our bodies will start to associate our bed with wakefulness. We don't want to do that, right? So limiting electronics, the blue light, it's very, very inhibitable when we're using our phones or computers or any screen really before bed. So it can disrupt the production of melatonin that signals our body for sleep. And that's really the most important thing. So the less screen time you're getting right before bed, the better. Okay. Avoiding heavy foods, or maybe, maybe leave a couple of hours between your last meal of the day and your bedtime, because that's going to be helpful as well, because our bodies can't really get comfortable and digest well enough, prior to sleeping. And reducing stress. Absolutely, right? Anxiety can make our bodies feel on edge and restless, right? I would incorporate something like deep breathing or any other technique or activity that can help you achieve like a sense of calm, bringing our bodies back to calm, okay? So next, learn something new. I don't know why my computer's being very odd right now. Come on. There we go. Learn something new. That is another way that we can engage in self-care. Okay, so what are the benefits of learning something new, right? I would say that the biggest piece really is it improves your health, your memory. It can also increase our confidence. It can allow us to create community, depending on the activity, right? Take a class, join a club, learn a new skill. When we do learn something new, right, it forms more neural pathways. Neurostimulation that increases the speed in which our impulses travel, right? So that is really, 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 really interesting that at any age we can learn a new skill, okay? Research supports lifelong learning as an ability to help and foster and maintain our mental well-being. When we learn something new, increases the amount of dopamine, right? That's the feel-good hormone. When we have more dopamine, it helps us cope with daily stressors and challenges. So I would suggest, learning something new. It doesn't have to be anything, really intense or difficult, but learning anything new would be something great to be able to engage in. So building your mental superpower, right? And I'm talking about mindfulness. So I'm hoping that my video will play. It is one of my most favorite videos. But why is mindfulness a superpower? So let's real quick just check out this quick video.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
I love that video because it literally explains mindfulness in such a way that is so simple. And I do agree that mindfulness is going to be the next big thing, just as brushing teeth, exactly what he said. So I want to just quickly touch on what the physiology of mindfulness does, like what happens to our bodies, right? So hopefully all of you know, right, that our nervous system is separated into really two divisions, we'll call them, right? So we have our parasympathetic nerves and our sympathetic nerves, right? So the sympathetic nerves are really that fight or flight, right? And the parasympathetic nerves are what some scientists refer to as bringing the body back to calm, okay? So, and you can see this from here, right? So that bring the body back to calm, right? Constricts pupils, stimulates saliva flow, slows our heart rate, constricts our bronchi, stimulates the stomach and pancreas, stimulates biorelease, contracts the bladder. And then the parasympathetic, right, dilates, does the opposite, right? Really secretes adrenaline, right? Does all those things, stimulates the body, right? So that's important, right? So the sympathetic division really triggers the stress response, okay? So the fight or flight, right? Increases our heart rate, our breathing, blood flow, whenever we're stressed. That's what the sympathetic nerves do, right? So the parasympathetic nerves, it does the opposite, right? It's activating the relaxation response that decreases our heart rate, it decreases our breathing, and actually reduces our blood pressure, right? So what does that do? It's actually the parasympathetic system facilitates rest and recharge, right? So that's really important to understand, right? Mindfulness activates the parasympathetic division of our brains, right? So what am I saying, right? Mindfulness stimulates the body's relaxation response. In other words, mindfulness brings the body back to calm. Okay, and that's why mindfulness is going to be the next big thing. If you check out our SB Engaged, we have 3 different mindful meditation, mindful moments, 3 times a week, Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays at all different times. They are peer-led spaces, but we know from the research that mindfulness brings the body back to calm. And if we can learn the skills of how to engage in mindfulness and practice mindfulness and mindful self-compassion, it will reduce stress and we'll be able to change our behavior when we're faced with something that is stressful. So that being said, outside of mindfulness, it's mindful self-compassion, right? And what is mindful self-compassion? Mindful self-compassion is just 3 different components that we bring together, right? Mindfulness, right? We talked about that. Being aware of the present moment, right? So being aware of our physical, emotional, or mental pain of the moment, right? When we're talking about, we're not feeling like ourselves. Okay, so we stop, we think, okay, what does my body need right now, right? It's acknowledging our feelings, right? Also, just acknowledging our feelings about what is happening right now. Self-kindness, treating ourselves with kindness, considering our own needs. What I normally refer to that as is, how do you treat a good friend, right? So if I was somebody who was struggling, maybe I didn't get that job that I had applied for and worked really hard, maybe I didn't get the grade, maybe I didn't get into the graduate school that I applied to, right? As my friend, as my good friend, how would you speak to me? The way that you speak to me as your good friend in that situation should be the same way, the same tone, the same words that you speak to yourself in those same kinds of situations. We often don't do that. There's often a very different way that we speak to ourselves during those situations. So treating ourselves with kindness is one of the most important things that we can do, right? Last but definitely not least, that final component is the common humanity. And that's really just recognizing that like anything that things that happen to us are a part of normal, experiences of a human being, right? We're not perfect and nobody is, right? So we need to give ourselves credit, and reassure ourselves that we deserve kindness and that we're not alone. And those are really the components of being able to give ourselves grace and kindness and extend it to others around us. That's really what that looks like, right? And the fifth, and one of the most powerful ones that we actually do in one of our mindfulness spaces, there's an activity that our peer ed students do, and it talks about journaling, but gratitude journaling is another great way to engage in self-care. Often, people in general, not just students, but people in general don't often stop and think about where they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. And if you stop and you think about where you were, whether that's physically, whether that's educationally, whether that's emotionally, whether that's literally, think about any of those things. Where you think about that, right? And then what did you need to do in order to get where you're sitting right now? You've probably applied for different things, written papers, needed to get recommendations, needed to take tests, needed to do some work on yourself, right? Take a minute to just show yourself some credit, pat yourself on the back. Not enough people do that and give themselves credit for where they have been and where they are now. Because I can tell you that when you understand that and you appreciate yourself for what you've been through, what you've gone through, what you've worked through, it can provide you with a different perspective, not only on you, but on the world around you. Okay, so giving yourself the minute to express gratitude for yourself is really important, right? But the benefits of gratitude journaling, right? Lowers stress levels, absolutely. It gives us a greater sense of calm. It allows us to have a better understanding of our purpose, of our life, of where we're going. Setting goals can be a great way to use journaling. I know a few students that I've spoken to recently have said that they use a journal prompt that they do in the beginning of the year, and they do it at the end of the year. In the beginning of the year, they set some goals that they would like to work towards. And then at the end of the year, they look back and they see which goals that they accomplished, and then they set new goals. And they talk about, adjusting and all that kind of stuff. Journaling can be very, very cathartic. It allows us to have better sleep as well. Sometimes just getting our thoughts on paper can allow us to calm our brains and our thinking right before bed as well. So just some quick, being thankful, but also just journaling, getting our thoughts on paper can be cathartic. And, ask for help. Maybe this is 6 self-care tips, but really asking for help. Right? We talked about getting to know your red flags. Okay. And we have a ton of resources on this campus that are available to all students for free. Okay. So our Student Accessibility and Support Center, they're in the student union. If you have any type of disability, or you think you might, or you may need a little bit extra help, depending on what it is, you can get a consultation and speak to them. They're right in the union. Actually, almost all of us are in the union. We're part of the Student Health, Wellness, and Prevention Services Student Support Team. I often refer to the Student Support Team as like, if you don't know where to start, the Student Support Team is the hub for the connection to everything on campus. They can help with anything from mental health concern to not being able to, access, nutrition. If you need to go home because something happened, right? Like, the student support team is a great space to be able to help with anything, support students as best they can. The care team, right? It's consulting, assessing, responding. Really, the care team, if you're concerned about a peer, a staff, a TA, you're noticing that something's not right, you're concerned, you can reach out to the care team and anonymously just say, hey, I'd like you to put this person on your radar and make sure they're connected. That is a great way to just, be an upstander, honestly. CPO, that's us. It's me, Center for Prevention and Outreach. Also, if you're not really sure where to start, or if we have this service or a resource on campus, reach out. Give us a call. You can DM us on Instagram as well. We're at cpo.sbu, but we can help guide you and get you to the right resource as well. Our CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, they have everything from in-person to telehealth therapy. Talk therapy. They also offer support groups. They also have workshops. They have psychiatry, medication management. They have a ton of different resources right there in the student health building. So you can make an appointment on their website. You can give them a call. They're fantastic. Then we have our student health services, right? If you need a vaccination, you're not feeling well, you can contact them, make an appointment. I believe they have walk-ins as well, but they have a GYN clinic, dermatology. They do everything from potentially blood work to getting a vaccine, right? So they do a ton of different things for students on campus. Recreational wellness. They're not just the gym or the rec center. There's intramural sports. They have different fitness classes. They have a pool. You could swim, you could run. They have all different activities and groups that meet weekly. They have different types of, they do CPR training. They do a ton of stuff. Their facility is beautiful. So if you're looking to, to figure out how to do that, you can access them as well. And I don't know how many of you know this, but I think, talk a little bit about timely care the last time I presented. Really, it is virtual 24/7 access to mental health and physical health resources, health coaching, on-demand mental health support to students, graduate students, undergraduate students, doesn't matter. It is accessible to you. All you need to do is scan that QR code or go to timelycare.com/Stonybrook. You register with your Stony Brook email, and you will be given 24/7 on-demand access to licensed counselors, health coaching, mental health support. You can make an appointment. You can drop in and connect with somebody immediately. This is all for free for students. So I hope that you do utilize it. And definitely, last but not least, is learning more about Center for Prevention and Outreach, right? We are on Instagram, we're on Facebook. You can check out our website for more information. All of our events are on SB Engaged. We do everything from meaningful fun to workshops. We have a wellness bar. We also coordinate the PALS, the Pet Away Life Stress, the animal interactions. There's actually an event happening in West Apartments at 1 o'clock. And you'll be able to pet some dogs and de-stress as well. We also offer free health products to all students. There is a mandate that says that I think it's a SUNY mandate. I have to really ask my colleague about that, but that college students need to have 24/7 access to free health products. So we have everything from menstrual hygiene kits to safer sex kits. We also have fentanyl testing kits. We have flu kits. We have first aid kits. We often have any type of really health product that you could potentially think of. We have, if you check out our website, you can order those products in bulk if you want or ahead of time, but they also are accessible 24/7 outside of our door, even outside of business hours. We're located in the Student Union, Suite 108. We're right by the vending machines over in the corner, and we always have baskets outside with resources as well as health products. So I would encourage you to take advantage of these free resources that are on campus. And that's all I have for today. I hope that you're walking away with something that maybe you didn't know before. And really, most importantly, take care of yourselves. Make sure that you're engaging in community. Make sure that you are taking care of your mental health, your physical health. And if you need anything, please reach out to CPO and we'll be able to, connect you and get you connected to the right resource. I'll stick around if anybody has any questions, but I hope you all have a great weekend and take good care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.